Houses Path Goal Theory, Nursing 50/50 Visionary Leadership in Nursing, Leadership Theory, Model, and Style Presentation. My name is Edith Patterson. Houses Path Goal Theory. Houses Path Goal Theory focuses on how leaders motivate employees to accomplish set goals. The theory first appeared in the leadership literature in the early 1970s. The stated goal of this leadership theory is to enhance employee performance and employee satisfaction by focusing on employee motivation. The learning objectives are to describe the path goal theory, illustrate the different components of the path goal theory, develop an understanding of how the path goal theory functions, and compare the strengths and criticisms of the path goal theory. Learning objectives also develop the knowledge needed to apply the path goal theory in leadership. Theory description. Path goal theory is derived from the expectancy theory, which suggests that subordinates will be motivated if they think they are capable of performing their work, if they believe their efforts will result in a certain outcome, and if they believe that the payoffs for doing their work are worthwhile. This theory emphasizes the relationship between the leader's style and the characteristics of the subordinates and the work setting. The challenge is to use a leadership style that best fits the subordinates' motivational needs. Leaders should choose behaviors that complement or supplement what is missing in the work setting, enables the leader to meet the subordinates' motivational needs. Leaders provide subordinates with the elements they think subordinates need to reach their goals. Leaders enhance subordinates' goal attainment by providing information or rewards in the work environment. Motivation is generated when leadership increases the number and kinds of payoffs that subordinates receive from their work. Leadership motivates by making the path to the goal clear and easy to travel through, coaching and direction, removing obstacles and roadblocks to attaining the goal, and making the work itself personally satisfying. The major components of the path goal theory are leader behaviors, subordinate characteristics, task characteristics, and motivation. Leader behaviors. In the path goal theory suggests that each type of leader behavior has a different kind of impact on subordinates' motivation. Whether a particular leader's behavior is motivating to the subordinates is contingent on the subordinates' characteristics and the characteristics of the task. Leader behaviors are broken into 4 categories: directive leader behavior, supportive leader behavior, participative leader behavior, and achievement-oriented leader behavior. Directive leadership. Characterizing a leader who gives subordinates instructions about their task, including what is expected of them, how it is to be done, and the timeline for when it should be completed. A directive leader sets clear standards of performance and makes the rules and regulations clear to all subordinates. Supportive leadership. Supportive leadership consists of being friendly and approachable as a leader and includes attending to the well-being and human needs of the subordinates. Leaders using supportive behaviors go out of their way to make their work pleasant for their subordinates. Leaders treat subordinates as equals and give them respect for their status. Participative leadership. Participative leadership consists of inviting subordinates to share in the decision-making. A participative leader consults with subordinates, obtains their ideas and opinions, and integrates their suggestions into the decisions about how the group or the organization will proceed. Achievement-oriented leadership. Characterized by a leader who challenges subordinates to perform work at the highest level possible. This leader establishes a high standard of excellence for subordinates and seeks continuous improvement. These leaders show a high degree of confidence that subordinates are capable of establishing and accomplishing the goals at which they've set forth. Leader behaviors. Leaders might exhibit any or all 4 styles with various subordinates, and in different situations, leaders should adapt their styles to the situation or the motivational needs of their subordinates. There may be instances when the leader may use one or more of the styles at the same time. Subordinate characteristics. Subordinate characteristics determine how a leader's behavior is interpreted by subordinates in a given work context. Subordinate characteristics are broken into 4 categories: subordinates that have a need for affiliation, subordinates who have preferences for structure, subordinates who have the desire for control, and subordinates who have the self-perceived level of taskability. These determine the degree to which subordinates find the behavior of a leader an immediate source of satisfaction or instrumental to some future satisfaction. A subordinate who has a strong need for affiliation prefers supportive leadership because friendly and concerned leadership is a source of satisfaction for them. Subordinates who have preferences for structure prefer to have a directive leadership It helps subordinates by clarifying the path to the goal, making it less ambiguous. Examples are dogmatic or authoritarian subordinates who have to work in uncertain situations. These individuals feel more comfortable when a leader provides a great sense of certainty in the work setting. Subordinates who have desires for control. This characteristic is subdivided into internal and external dimensions. Subordinates with an internal locus of control believe they are in charge of the events that occur in their life. Subordinates with external locus of control believe that chance, fate, or outside forces determine life events. For subordinates with an internal locus of control, participative leadership is most satisfying because it allows them to feel in charge of their work and to be an integral part of the decision making. For subordinates with an external locus of control, directive leadership is best because it parallels subordinates' feelings that outside forces control their circumstances. Subordinates that have a self-perceived level of task ability. As subordinates' perception of their own abilities and competence goes up, the need for directive leadership goes down. Directive leadership becomes redundant and perhaps excessively controlling when subordinates feel competent to complete their own work. Task characteristics. These characteristics have a major impact on the way a leader's behavior influences subordinates' motivation. Task characteristics include the design of the subordinate's task, the formal authority system of the organization, and the primary work group of the subordinate. Obstacles could be anything in the work setting that gets in the way of the subordinates, create excessive uncertainties, frustrations, or threats for the subordinates. Leaders should help subordinates by removing obstacles or helping them around them. This increases subordinates' expectation that they can complete the task and increase their sense of job satisfaction. The functionality of the PathGo theory. The PathGo theory provides a set of assumptions about how various leadership styles interact with characteristics of the subordinates and the work setting to affect the motivation of the subordinates. Leaders need to choose a leadership style that best fits the needs of the subordinates and the work they are doing. PathGo theory and how it works. Here in this chart you see the leadership behaviors, the subordinate characteristics, and the task characteristics. Together these combine to show how the PathGo theory works and how it makes it clear to leaders how to pick the best type of leadership behavior that fits the best subordinate characteristics and the task characteristics. Strengths of the theory. The theory provides a useful theoretical framework for understanding how various leadership behaviors affect subordinate satisfaction and work performance. The theory attempts to integrate the motivation principles of expectancy theory into leadership. The theory forces leaders to continually ask questions about subordinate motivation, provides a model that in certain ways is very practical, clarifies the paths to the goal, removes or helps subordinates around the obstacles to the goals, reminds leaders the purpose of leadership is to guide, coach the subordinates as they move along the path to achieve a goal. Criticisms of the theory. The theory is so complex and incorporates so many different aspects of leadership that interpreting the theory can be confusing. The theory has received only partial support from many empirical research studies that have been conducted to test the validity. It fails to explain the relationship between the leadership behavior and the worker motivation. The theory suggests that it is important for leaders to provide coaching, guidance, and direction for subordinates, to help subordinates define and clarify the goals, and to help subordinates around obstacles as they attempt to reach their goals. But this kind of leadership over time could be counterproductive because it promotes dependency and fails to recognize the full abilities of the subordinates. Application to practice. The theory provides a set of general recommendations based on characteristics of the subordinates and tasks for how leaders should act in various situations if they want to be effective. The leader must carefully assess the subordinates and their tasks and then choose an appropriate leadership style to match those characteristics. This diagram is an example of the application. One, you have the subordinates, you have a clearly defined path, which of course you have obstacles that kind of tend to intrude upon that path, and then you have the goal. The PathGo leadership defines the goals, clarifies the path, removes any obstacles, and provides support. In this example of application diagram, you see the subordinates, motivation instead of the path, and then you have the goals. These are impacted by the leadership behaviors, be it directive, supportive, participative, achievement-oriented, the subordinate characteristics, and the task characteristics. As you can see, all three of these can impact the subordinate's motivation and can impact whether or not they reach their goals. This is an example situation of application. In this example, I thought up of a situation in my work environment where we could possibly use this Pathco theory. And the goal set forth at my center is that for surgical technicians to decontaminate, assemble, and sterilize surgical instrument trays in an efficient, productive, and timely manner. Of course, the subordinates is clearly defined as surgical technicians, but there are many obstacles that could impact whether or not they complete their goal. And these could be inefficient lighting to see debris, washer malfunctions, autoclave malfunction, unscheduled subordinate absences. This is a diagram of the previous example that I gave you on the other slide about my center and my surgical tech situation. So you see in this diagram that the surgical technicians, they have their motivation to their goals and their productivity. And up above is the actual types of leadership that needed to be supporting in this situation, because the surgical technicians are unsatisfied, they need affiliation, they need human touch, their task characteristics are repetitive, unchallenging, and mundane, all of which impact the motivation, which can cause these individuals to not reach their goal. This again is another diagram of the example that I gave in the previous two slides of the Pathco theory process. You have surgical technicians. The path is clearly defined, that they are being tasked to decontaminate, assemble, and sterilize instrument trays in an efficient, productive, and timely manner. And then you have your obstacles that impact the path, which are inefficient lighting to see the debris, washer malfunctions, autoclave malfunctions, and unscheduled subordinate absences. In this instance, it's showing you that the Pathco leadership should define the goals, clarify the path, remove those obstacles, and provide support. In my conclusion, I would like to say that the Pathco theory emphasizes the relationship between the leader's style and the characteristics of the subordinates and the work setting. The challenge is to use a leadership style that best meets the subordinates' motivational needs. In this theory, one is tasked to find the best behavior as a leader to get the best outcome from the employees. I feel that this leadership theory model is very relevant in today's situations in my center. The question number one that I have for you is, Pathco theory is useful because it continually reminds leaders that central purpose is to help subordinates define their goals, and then to help subordinates reach their goals in the most efficient manner. Can you give me an example from your current work in which leaders have been successful in defining goals and helping subordinates reach their goals in a most efficient manner? My second question is, the Pathco theory suggests that it is important for leaders to provide coaching, guidance, and direction for subordinates to help subordinates define and clarify goals, and to help subordinates around obstacles as they attempt to reach their goals. Do you believe that over time this kind of leadership could be counterproductive because it promotes dependency and fails to recognize the full abilities of the subordinates? I would like to thank you for the opportunity that you have given me to describe for you in detail the Pathco theory. Thank you.